G'day folks, Mark and Sam after work here. I want to do a little update on our 303 British project. So yeah, the 303 in the Lee Enfield and places in rifles like that around the place. This rifle here, we did a video previously, but it is a HOWA 1500, which has had a barrel spun up by Grant at Swan Barrels in the 303. It's 26 inches long, one of my 3-port muzzle brakes on it, sitting in the MDT or the ORYX chassis with a few bits and pieces on it. I've raised the butt pad to it. It's got one of my bag riders on it, and it's got one of my Bipod systems on it. That's what I have been doing testing with to shoot the 303. I'll put a link down below there to the video that explains that a little bit more. I have been trying to do the extreme, or the ELR, extreme long range shot, and get on target at 3,000 yards. I thought that's a sort of a goal of this sort of thing, to see if we can get to that place. So let's see how we go about getting to that place. Now, started off very well. We had decent conditions, and I started off very well shooting this projectile here. Yes, there's another alongside it, but that's just the Sierra Match King 174 grain 303 projectile. And yes, it's a 303 barrel. It's not a 308 barrel, it's a 303 barrel. For those that know what that is, a 308 barrel is a 30 cal, so 3.030 is the size of a 308 barrel. A 303 barrel is actually a .303, or actually the caliber, in talking the same language as 308, which is what we call a 308, which is a 30 cal. These are a 311. They're 3 thou larger. So this is a 303, 3 thou larger than the 30 cal or the 308. And I was shooting that projectile because that was the best one I could find locally. Now, there are better projectiles, but that's the best one I could get and had access to. So in moderate weather, we shot and we got pretty close. It was pretty close to around that target. Thought all we had to do was go out again. But we've had an absolutely terrible season for ELR, meaning it's either cloudy, where we've got heavy cloud, and so we can't see anything when we want to shoot in the mornings. So there's heavy cloud for all that period, or at the moment there isn't heavy cloud, then there's high and erratic wind. We go out with a weather report recently where we're supposed to have 10 to 14 k's an hour, and we've got 25 to 30 k's an hour. So it's been really difficult. We've been out a fair few times and had to just walk away. We're not going to get a video with it, or the wind is just not just high, but also very erratic. We did do a couple of efforts of trying to shoot in where the wind was pretty high, and see if we could do it, and it was really struggled to see the impacts. Little tiny impacts on the ground is all we got to see with the 303 once we managed to find it to target, because it was taking 9 seconds to travel that far and slowing down that much that was really putting very little energy out at target. So in good conditions, it was conceivable, and in the way of where the 303 would have been used like that, in the luxury of volley fire and shooting lots out there, yeah, still it would have been lethal in places. Still would have been hard to deal with out there in that sort of stuff. But for precision, proper precision ELR, so 24-inch plate out at 3,000 yards, so 3/4 MOA to get on target. Very high precision you've got to get at that sort of level. It wasn't able to deal with those conditions, just too variable. It meant that once I got close, it'd only take a tiny 1/4 k an hour difference, or in mile an hour difference in wind, and it would move it too far. It was too long in the air, and it was traveling too slow out there. So I went through the process of, how am I going to get different bullets? What am I going to do on that sort of stuff? Couldn't find anyone that was bringing all the different bullets. Researched all different ones, and people make suggestion, and listen, awesome if you're in that country, in Europe or wherever, in the USA or wherever those bullets are, but there are none coming into Australia, and very difficult to do. And even for us over in Australia, to order some stuff, with the process of getting out of particularly the USA, getting out through the customs and license you've got to do to get out of the country, getting in here, it generally is in the world of 2 to 3 months to see projectiles here. So we went out. I think I did it a couple of times of that, wasn't working. I thought, okay, I can quit, but I'm not one to give up. I'll try a different process. I sat back down and thought about it. And there's a level of, okay, you could do another barrel in 30 cal with the same chamber, been done before, do the 303 with a 30 cal barrel. It's only 3 thou difference in the barrel, and then just run a different projectile in there. So run a 30 cal, and you get all the great Berger bullets, which is I prefer to use. There's other ones as well, but I prefer to use Berger. There's all those great choices, and we can see how we can go with that. But I thought, you know what? It's 3 thou. Now I know barrel manufacturers talk about 1 thou and half a thou being a big difference, but this is 3 thou. And when you understand that when a projectile first gets hit, or when it, as a bullet actually pushes forward, but in a jacketed lead projectile, that it obdurates, or whatever that word is. What it means is when it's pushed really hard from behind, it squishes out, it expands because it's being pushed hard from behind. So that also combined with the fact that I made sure that a rifle, that it just doesn't just skid down there. It has enough traction. Generally, I think you're talking about the 5 to 8 thou, and maybe a little more, but that sort of distance is what you're actually talking about in the way of how much the rifling cuts into a projectile. Doesn't slide down, made sure it wouldn't push through just by hand, so it's pushing enough. Let's give it a shot. Let's try a 308 or a 30 cal projectile in a 303 barrel. Let's just give it a shot. But to do that, I wanted to go with high ballistic coefficient, and I wanted to go with I wanted to go for 2 reasons. I wanted a better ballistic coefficient, but also I wanted a fair bit of bearing surface. So the flat bit down the side of the projectile, I wanted that to be fairly long to make sure there was a lot of room for the lands to actually grip properly on the projectile, and to create the resistance to make sure it obdurates, or it expands enough as it goes down the projectile. And let's see what it does. So I really went out today with what looked like good conditions. They turned out not to be, but they still were okay for this test. But looked like good conditions, and see, this is the first. Well, I did up 20 rounds, I only shot 15 of them. I wasn't getting anything more done. I did up 25 actually, I only shot 15 of them, but I wasn't getting anything more done because we had very high mirage. But it worked. I first of all, of course, went and put together 5 different rounds with different powder loads to see what pressure, so I could make sure I was getting decent speed and make sure I wasn't over pressuring and all that sort of stuff. I ran the 228 powder. I ran from less up to the same as what I'm running in these ones here, which I'm getting I'll put the speed on there is what I got out of that. What I then did was, this is the 208, which is what I picked as a projectile with those ingredients. Really good ballistic coefficient. It's a hybrid bullet. It runs a decent sized bearing surface on it. Let's see what it did. I went out and fired it with those powder loads, 1 grain difference between them, and found that I was almost at the same powder load as I was running with the 174 grain projectile. And that seemed to be good. I got a speed, that's all I did. I don't know at that stage if they're stabilizing properly. I don't know if they're grouping. I just was shooting across the little Garmin chronograph, and I saw 25, 40 feet per second. 1 shot, that's all I did. So okay, I thought that's worthwhile a try. Now we have very limited time. We're busy people. We're working all the time. We have terrible weather conditions. Like I said, it was cloudy, it was windy, it was all those bits and pieces. But today we went out with what should have been the 10k an hour wind, 10 to 15 k's an hour of wind, with clear skies. Well, it was clear skies. The wind was even lower than that, quite unusual for this time. The mirage was very bad. The mirage was high. So, okay.
Bottom left corner, just off.
Work with what you got. So it wasn't the perfect day for testing.
And there's too much mirage to really go too hard in this, but they're working.
Yeah.
$25.53.
Left, big dust, that. 9 o'clock. It looks like about 3/4 of target left.
$25.50. Goodness, they're working pretty nicely.
Top
just
right.
Over the top.
Yeah, 1 o'clock, just over the top.
I held right edge, so I'll go to bottom right corner.
Okay.
$25.53.
Top left,
tall.
level left edge, half target tall.
$25.49.
Faint dust to the right of target, couldn't say where. Maybe behind?
Well, this is a pretty good test. I'll do 5 more and we'll call it. We're not going to try and get on target really, but
Yep.
we're that close. $25.51.
Left.
Left.
Half a target left, about 10 o'clock.
$25.54.
Oh, in front low. Thing is bottom left corner.
Oh, that's a fast one. $25.60.
Over top, right, level the right edge and just over top. Just a bit tall.
$25.48.
Bottom right, dust, bottom right corner.
Over the 15, I saw no greater spread than 7 feet per second on the projectile. We're running from 25.47 to 25.54. We had one outlier. We had one that went to 25.60. So very, very good on its speeds. It was running in the way of differences. We were running, and I should say the way we're doing this is you're using the Charlie Tarac. We're using one of our forward optic mounts. There's a Picatinny rail here. So I'm running, this is set at 250 feet per second. 250 MOA. That's the complexity of that. That's 250. Then I'm running this. We ended up running 260 MOA to get onto target.
25.54.
Oh, in front low. Thing is bottom.
So compared to these fellas here, I was running just over about 330 to 340 MOA.
Oh, bottom left corner.
They varied a little bit with the moment where the change must have changed things, but extraordinarily more efficient on that sort of level. A far better bull at that side of things, and obviously they are stabilising. That we were holding down. I'll show you this group that's running here. You know, there was maybe, even though we had mirage, and you can't guarantee what's going on. The mirage was closer to us than it was out there, so the actual target position and what we were aiming at could easily be in a 2 MOA group. But it was holding down in that neck of the woods, in a 2 MOA group out there. So as for how much more accurate it is, from what I'm seeing, it's certainly stabilising. It's very, very consistent. The speeds were good. Everything's very good. We need some decent conditions, and this year doesn't look like it's sharing us any of those. But we certainly have got to a point of proving it to where we know we can make this work. This is going to work at that sort of level, and it is actually going to be for us running a bullet that we can achieve, or we can acquire, I should say. We've got access to in a good burger bullet that has obviously you can look at it far more efficient, the way the shape of that sort of stuff. We've still got it set up to where we can run decent powder in there. We're getting decent speed out of it, and that shot really, really well. But I suppose I wanted to share, I don't have a hit on steel, which is what the plan is, and that's what we'll get to. It certainly is now down to having some decent, we don't need brilliant, we don't need wonderful, we just need some reasonable conditions. High mirage, high wind, and high clouds are all things that are less than ideal. To be truthful, high consistent wind, I'd be fine with. We can work with that. You know, in the 20 mile an hour up to sort of 25 mile an hour. Once you get to 30, you're going a little too far. But if we had a consistent, 15 to 20 miles an hour, fine with that sort of stuff. But we need the light, need some consistency, and high mirage is never something to shoot a group on. But I was super impressed with it. I should say the rest of it, I went to basically putting everything in my favour. So I put one of my, this is the Nightforce 7x35 scope on here. This is the second focal plane. So I got on there so I could see properly to help with spotting with the conditions we've run into. But scope worked well, rifle worked really nicely. The HOWA action is really, really nice. Just a slightly lightened trigger. Everything in the rifle, and as you'll see by how it performed, really, really happy. Super happy with the barrel. Really nice looking in these, the anodite, the blued that they do on these barrels. So it's a very nice finish, and to be able to run that sort of stuff in the way of going to the 308, I actually spoke to Grant about this and said, you know, this is what I was doing. This is Grant over at Swan Barrels, very good guy to talk to. This is what I was doing. He said, oh yeah, okay, that's possible. I do know some people that actually do that. They don't tend to share it, but there's some guys with the Lee Enfields and that sort of stuff at competitions when they're shooting. Some of the guys actually do that. They don't tend to share it, but they'll actually run a 308. Even in a 100-year-old rifle, they'll, as long as the barrel isn't too worn, get away with running the likes of a 308, which is the 30 cal projectile, in a 303 barrel, and in most cases it'll actually work. So not something I was familiar with, something I did as a test as to see what happened, and I suppose you're going to be the same out there. Some people will go with, yeah, my dad used to do that, or that's one of my secrets, that's what I do too. And there's like going to be like the rest of us, which will go, okay, I didn't think you'd do that. Not encouraging to swap things around without understanding it all, the physicality of this sort of thing. This was at 3 thou, very small measurement. This was always, in my mind, likely to work, but possibly wouldn't. It did work brilliantly. And I got a feeling we almost might be seeing some extra speed because of seeing a tiny little less friction on the projectile. It might compute to a tiny little less accuracy. It might actually be, when I get a calm day, it might move into where it's a 1.5 MO rifle rather than a 1 MOA rifle. But from how it performed today, I would say not. I would say it is as consistent, and I'm expecting when they shoot really well, I'm in the 1/2 to 3/4 MOA out long range, and I have to be there to get to, and that's right out there. Which I should also address quickly. Occasionally we get what you're testing, what are you testing, what do you do testing, all that sort of stuff, what's your 100 grade groups and all that sort of things. We don't do that sort of testing. We test how we actually shoot. So I'm trying to get a group out there. I get it doesn't relate properly to guys who are shooting most of their shootings at 100 yards, and that's how they figure everything out. And whether that's a little bit of living vicariously, my rifle with this caliber and all that sort of stuff can actually shoot that far because I've seen that, I've compared the group to the same as his. Yeah, I understand that logic. My logic goes to the fact that it's not easy for us to set up for 100 yards. We try and produce content for you guys all the time, so our shooting is very much attached to a lot of that sort of stuff, so we don't have the extra testing sort of stuff. But we also have a wonderful facility, or an area that we can shoot, where we can go out and do this sort of stuff. And I suppose as the other logic is, I practice that as much as being familiar with all sorts of different firearms and shooting different things and all that sort of stuff is good, the actual practice we do is doing what we do. And the actual testing we do is doing what we do. So when I try and get a rifle to the 3,000 yards or the 2 miles or whatever it is, and that's where I go and do it. We're in a special situation because we've got that facility, that area, and we've got a reason to do it. We're trying to provide content, but that's where my testing is. So out there, you really have to have your ducks in line as a simple thing. I can't hold a group close around target by pure luck. Can't do that. That doesn't work. There's no holding your mouth in the right angle. You've got to get everything else working. And I suppose the last bit I'd say on that front is that I don't believe that actually how well our rifles shoot is because of an innate skill that I have by any means. I believe it's practice. I believe it's time. It's like everything else. You do a lot of the same thing all the time, you get better at it. Doesn't mean that I'd be any better than the next guy if I was doing as much as the next guy. There's that, and I think the engineering of things is also very relevant. From muzzle brakes and bits and pieces, that helps, it makes my job easier. Yeah, and I will take responsibility for those designs. But anyway, that's that sort of stuff there. Shot really well. The Charlie Tarac is really helps on that sort of stuff. Obviously means that I'm just using a normal rifle. There's no weird jacked up scopes or that sort of stuff. Works really nicely, and everything else did do it what it's supposed to do. But yeah, a 308 projectile or a 30 cal projectile in a 303, and we look like we're right on the target. I don't need to find special 303 projectiles. I can do it with that, and to be truthful, looks like if you wanted to, you could have done that in 1914 with one of those rifles and still have been successful with a 30 cal projectile in a 303. Anyway guys, that's what I got to tell you today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for checking in. I'll catch you next time.